Yo, it's your boy Mr. Sevenfold to the world blow. Post up with a pole, never been a hut. If you ain't know, now you motherfucking dope. And welcome to the Jump the Broom podcast, episode 5. Today we will be discussing how black culture has shaped America, how religion has been used as a tool of oppression, how black soldiers have been denied full benefits since the 1600s, since the beginning of time, to be honest, how black people forced emancipation and it was not voluntary. We're going to be discussing the erasure of black inventors. And last but not least, to wrap everything up, sports, of course. So, black culture drives American culture. Black innovation in music, language, fashion, sports, and art has shaped nearly every aspect of mainstream American culture. From jazz and hip-hop to streetwear and slang. Many of America's most popular cultural exports originate from black communities. And a lot of white people are going to get defensive hearing shit like this because acknowledging this feels like admitting that white America borrows heavily from the very people it has historically marginalized. You understand? So, Christianity and Islam were once diverse African-rooted traditions, were weaponized through colonization, enslavement, and Arabization to sever black people from their indigenous identities, and to erase and change our histories, and replace ancestral spiritual systems with belief structures that justify white and foreign domination. A process documented in papal bulls like Dom de Versailles in 1452 and Romanus Pontifex in 1455 that authorized the enslavement of Africans in the name of Christ. There was even a law created in 1667 called the Virginia Law that was stating baptism did not change an enslaved African's bondage. And the 1705 slave codes defining Africans and indigenous folks as non-Christian servants, and missionary schools that erased African culture. Long before Europeans arrived, the Arab slave trade, and Arabs are just Asian Europeans. Just want y'all to know that. Which lasted over 1,300 years, had already created a racial hierarchy in North and East Africa by linking blackness with servitude, enforcing Arabization, and normalizing the idea that African people could be enslaved because of religion. A model that directly laid the ideological foundation for the later Christian-backed transatlantic slave trade and the rise of modern white supremacy. These religious systems were deliberately used to destroy pre-existing African social orders, enforce obedience to foreign powers, break cultural memory, and create generations of black people who were taught to see themselves as inferior in the eyes of a foreign god while viewing their oppressors as divinely chosen leaders. And this was even reinforced by the Slave Bible of 1807. The Berlin Conferences, Civilizing, Mission, and Arab Chronicles describing forced Islamization and racialized servitude. Now, Doobie, how do we stop shit like this? Hold on, let me tell you, folks. To dismantle this power in America and Africa, black people must rebuild cultural literacy, reclaim indigenous African knowledge, separate spiritually from colonial manipulation, and support black-led institutions and businesses. You understand? And teach the new generation to interpret religion through a lens of liberation rather than submission. Ensuring that no outside ideology, European or Arab, ever replaces who we truly are again. With steel into the youth. You understand? Whether they listening or not, don't give up. With steel, because subconsciously, they listening. You dig? So I'm starting to see there are attempts to discredit black inventors like Lewis Latimer's carbon filament, aka the light bulb, it wouldn't work without it, and Garrett Morgan's traffic signal, and I'm starting to think it comes from a place of refusal to fully acknowledge how deeply racist 19th and early 20th century America was. But, I'll do it for you. especially in science, industry, and intellectual property, where white institutions control funding, laboratories, media coverage, and historical record keeping. Because black inventors were routinely denied access to corporate backing, trade journals, universities, and mainstream press. Much of our work survives primarily through patents and sparse documentation. Not because the inventions were insignificant, but because visibility itself was racially restricted and public credit was often redirected to white businessmen or corporations who later would end up profiting more from very similar ideas. The quick dismissal of patents as not enough evidence ignores that patents were often the only legal shield black inventors had in an environment where inventions were frequently stolen or absorbed into companies or rebranded without credit, forcing many black inventors to work quietly, limit publicity, or sell rights just to survive. This selective skepticism conveniently avoids applying the obvious truth. America was racist even to inventors, and the lack of surviving fanfare is not proof of fraud or insignificance, but proof of systemic erasure. So, black soldiers were blocked from receiving full benefits from the French and Indian War through Vietnam because federal and state systems were built with legal and structural barriers. Colonial militias and early federal forces classified black troops as non-eligible for land bounties 1750 through 1780. Then the Indian removal policies and later the slave codes criminalized armed black resistance during the Seminole Wars, 1816 through 1858. And after the Mexican American War, 1846 through 1848, black volunteers were denied land grants and pensions through race-based exclusions documented in War Department records. And after World War II, the 1944 GI Bill was written as a race-neutral federal law, but implemented locally through white-controlled banks, universities, and VA offices, resulting in less than 2% of black veterans receiving home loans or college access. While Jim Crow housing covenants, redlining maps, and state university segregation kept benefits out of reach. And then during Vietnam, 1955 all the way through 1975, black soldiers were disproportionately drafted, placed in frontline combat, and returned to communities blocked by discriminatory VA lending, urban renewal displacement, and the 1971 suspension of benefits rule, which cut aid for veterans arrested during anti-war or civil rights protests. In every era, the combination of race-based legislation, local enforcement practices, and institutional gatekeeping ensured black soldiers risked the most but received the least. Documented, and per the National Archives, the VA's historical reports, and the congressional records and academic analysis from Howard, MIT, and the Equal Justice Initiative. So I need everybody to know that white people did not end slavery, and they damn sure didn't end it out of the kindness of their hearts. Because I'm seeing Elon Musk say stupid ass shit. So let's get to the bottom of this, and let me tell you the truth. Historians like W.E.B. Du Bois and Eric Foner document that Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, only because the Union was losing the Civil War. And mass black revolts, mass self-emancipation, and the enlistment of over 180,000 black Union soldiers destabilized the slave economy. After Lincoln openly admitted in his August 1862 Horace Greeley letter that he would free none, some, or all of the enslaved if it preserved the Union. Black Americans such as Robert Smalls, who seized the Confederate warship Plantier in 1862. Harriet Tubman, who led the Combahee River Raid in 1863, freeing over 700 people, and hundreds of thousands of unnamed fugitives forced their own freedom. And based off these events and based off of Lincoln's own words, this would make Lincoln's priority national survival, not moral opposition to slavery. While he still allows slavery to continue in Union-loyal states. After 1865, white power structures globally simply rebranded slavery, profiting through the U.S. convict leasing system, 1865 all the way through 1928. Now, British and Belgian forced labor regimes in Africa and modern systems the UN and ILO classify as forced labor, including mineral extraction in the Congo, cobalt and copper, feeding Western tech and auto companies, forced domestic and construction labor in Dubai and Kuwait and the Gulf, agricultural and mining exploitation in South Africa, armed group gold extraction and artifact looting in Sudan. And sweatshops and fisheries all across Asia supplying Western brands. This uninterrupted profit chain is why I'm arguing slavery was never abolished, except for in America by Black Americans, only renamed through laws, contracts, borders, and supply chains. And why modern claims that slavery is over and it was ended by white people, from people like Elon Musk and many other stupid ass white people. You understand? Ignore a global economy still built on coerced black and brown labor, which is slavery, my nigga. And it's enforced by Europe, my nigga. How the fuck do white people end something that they still actively profit from to this day and still enforce? What the fuck? So let's talk sports, because all of my favorite teams are doing some crazy shit right now, and we gotta address this shit. You did. So right now, my favorite teams are all doing some very, very wild things. I like the Bears because I'm from Chicago, obviously, right? And they're leading the NFC North with a savage defense, and Caleb Williams finally playing mistake-free, making their next divisional matchup a true test of how far they can go. See, now, I like the Bears, but I wouldn't call myself a fan of the Bears. I am a fan of the Lions, and a few other teams we'll get to in a second, but I switched to liking the Lions out of pure frustration. I'm not gonna lie. But you know what? They aren't as good as I thought they'd be either. Like, they are a solid but very, very inconsistent team. I'm not gonna lie. They keep flashing strong offense and defense, but still keep falling short against elite competition. Now, let's get to the Bengals. I've been a Bengals fan since the day I was born, and the day they drafted AJ Green and Chad Ochocinco just solidified it for me, right? But they've completely collapsed this year, with bad defense, questionable play calling, and a front office that refuses to protect its stars and re-sign them at least as well, right? Like, the offensive coordinators or whoever the fuck is pissing me the fuck off, because how the fuck did you draft up plays that had the offense looking better with Joe Flacco than fucking Joe Burrow? What the fuck are you niggas doing? Even when we was losing, even when we was losing with Joe Flacco, it looked good, though, like, this nigga still got some life. We still got some life. We can come back and win this. You know? Joe Burrow looked like shit out there, man. What the fuck? Now, let's get into the Browns. While the Browns, who I fuck with from a distance, since I grew up here in Cleveland, right, they are a very, very chaotic team. They're mismanaging quarterbacks and schemes and trapping Myles Garrett on a team that can't get out of its own way. Now, let's get into my OKC Thunder, who I've been a fan of since the day I was born. You know, I loved OKC so much because Westbrook was my favorite player. It was a time I would have took Westbrook over Curry. I'd have took Westbrook over Kyrie. I'd have took Westbrook over whoever the fuck. I don't give a fuck. You can't even talk to me about Westbrook. You understand? So I'm so glad to see that we're still motherfucking cooking. 24-2 behind Shea, and the return of that boy Jalen Williams, even though that Spurs loss stung a little bit, I ain't gonna lie, it stung. I thought we was gonna win that NBA Cup. And it might have showed how to beat us. But I think it was just because all of our starters were back and we gotta get back in rhythm. We gotta get back in rhythm, folks. So I think it was more like a wake-up call than a derailment, keeping us comfortably on track to dominate the rest of the season. You did. We fuck around and go 80-2 now. You did. Go. Okay, don't forgive or don't forget, bitch, I'ma hold a grudge.